Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm Kevin,
We are.
the Signal Brothers. Hey, folks, viewers, thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to another live podcast with the Signal Brothers, where today we're covering the Third and Fifth Amendment. Hey, you know, it's a little different doing a live podcast, Jim. Wouldn't you say? We're not cutting and editing anything out, right? I
No,
don't know
not at
what
all.
I don't know what you're going to say. You don't know what I'm going to say. I don't even
And that's the
know
fun part.
exactly what I'm going to say about what we talk about. You know what I mean? I'm saying.
Hmm.
So I think this is unique, right? That we're doing these live, right? And there's other people doing them live, but it doesn't mean we're going to be perfect in everything we say. And we're processing thoughts on the research we did to prepare for this podcast, and should be interesting.
Yeah, the most we do is right before the podcast is what current events are we going to talk about, and that's really all the rehearsal that's done.
Yep. Hey, we'd love to take questions related to the subjects that we're talking about. If you have any comments or questions, please type them in the chat and we will answer them. We answer them usually right away. We'll finish a thought or sentence we're having, and then we'll jump in once we see them in the chat, and we'll answer them. And let us know what you're passionate about. We'd love to have guests on the podcast. If you'd love to come on the podcast and there's a subject you're passionate about, hey, please come on and let us know. Talk to Jim or I. We'll be happy to get you on, and we'll discuss the subject like we did with Emilio a few months back. And even if you don't want to be on the podcast, if you got an idea for a subject for us to cover, would you put it in the chat and let us know that as well? Or reach out to Jim or I and let us know. And we'll be happy to cover a subject that you're interested in. Well, Jim, I'm going to turn it over to you with no further ado for our first topic.
All right. How about this one? We're going to go with the Third Amendment. This one I was not real familiar with myself before we decided to do this. This amendment's not really a very well known one. It's never really even been used or challenged or executed at all. Basically, it says that no soldier shall, in time of peace, big distinction, be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. Now, you've probably seen older wartime movies. The Patriot with Mel Gibson comes to mind. Troops are moving; they come through. It's wartime. They're gonna quarter their soldiers in your house. That's just how it is. But this is going to stop them from doing the peacetime. They can't just come sequester your house, your property during peacetime to quarter their soldiers. I mean, this one's pretty straightforward. There's not a whole lot of use for it today. Um, in the latter half of the 20th century, though, they talked about expanding it. They tried to redefine it and expand it to meaning any private area, any community, and still it really rarely used and never challenged. It's one of those that the time seems to have passed it by.
Yeah, it was really because back when the British were occupying, right, the
Mm-hmm.
colonies were
Yeah.
forced to house the British soldiers, and that's the reason they put it in there to make sure that happened again.
Yep.
And the interesting thing is, you're covering that, Jim, is that it's an assertion of fundamental rights to privacy and protection in one's home and personal space from government intrusion. And I agree
Mm-hmm.
with that, right? And while it really doesn't have significance from a perspective of quartering, right, putting up troops in the home, that assertion to fundamental rights to privacy and protection in the home to me is a big deal, right?
Oh yeah.
And if you think about it, even though this relates to troops, and there's other amendments that cover it, but like even when the police come to the door, unless they have a warrant, they're not coming in your house unless you are wanting to let them in. I mean, this is that right to privacy in your own home that
Yeah.
you're entitled to.
Because at that point, you've got a couple of amendments you can fall back on to protect you from that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's important. I know that there are people out there that will try to leverage the Third Amendment to discuss the National Guard troops that are being deployed to some of the cities, but nobody's putting those troops up in their homes, right?
Right.
And the places they're going have nothing to do with people's homes, right? And maybe they are going to people's homes, right, to arrest people, but they're not staying. So,
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, how's long has it been since we actually had a war on our soil? I mean, we had the attack on Pearl Harbor and, of course, 9/11, but those weren't actually wars at the time that occurred. We're talking Civil War. We're talking Revolutionary War when troops are marching past your home. I mean, this is what that was for.
yep, absolutely. Well, I think it's pretty solid. As you said, not used, has never been used. Thank God, because if we're using it, then we got issues at home, right? Bigger issues at
Mm-hmm.
home. So I'm thankful.
Yep.
All right, on to the Fifth Amendment. Now, Jim, I'll let you cover this, but I just want to let you know I was shocked when I read it, right, and
Yeah.
realized the scope and depth and breadth of Fifth Amendment.
It's
Because most people know Fifth Amendment of self-incrimination, but the Fifth Amendment is so much deeper than that. So
it.
I'll turn it over to you.
Well, here's the actual verbiage, and then I'll go to a screen that kind of summarizes it. The Fifth Amendment says no person, and I found this interesting too, Kevin. It doesn't say no citizen. Like people want to say the United States citizens, this applies to only United States citizens. It says no person,
Yep.
not citizen. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless a presentment of an indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And that's another one that we talked about in some of our other podcasts with immigration. We talked about due process. I didn't realize that was Fifth Amendment. I knew we had it, but I didn't realize it was Fifth Amendment. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now, to make that a little clearer, there's really 5 main points to that. Right to a grand jury, no double jeopardy, no self-incrimination. This is the one that you hear is most about. You watch your crime shows, your crime dramas, your court shows. You hear people on the stands stating the Fifth Amendment. That's where most people, get that from. This is what most people talk about. But it's got your right to due process and eminent domain. So, like it says in the actual verbiage, you have the right to a grand jury. You cannot be held or tried for a crime unless a grand jury has handed down an indictment for that crime. And if no double jeopardy, I mean, Kevin, if you were to get upset one day because the Giants lose, I mean, that's rarely going to happen, right? And you went up and shot me and went to trial, went to jail for murder, served 20 years, come back out and find out that I lived, you could walk up and shoot me again. You could kill me again. But you could not be tried for that crime for a second time. The same as if you were acquitted of that murder. And they found new evidence later, they cannot go back and try you again. Now, I think they have some sneaky ways around that get you for like discharging a firearm and, city limits, that kind of thing. But they can't try you for the same thing. And of course, we know the self-incrimination. Nobody can be compelled to testify against themselves or state anything under oath that would incriminate yourself. And then, of course, our favorite right to due process. Nobody should be taking their life or liberty or posterity away from them without the due process of law. And this one blew me away. I did not know eminent domain was in here. If a good example of that is, the road that I live on, you've been here, that country road that winds around, they just sold all that land and built a bunch of houses. Now we got so much traffic on that 2-lane road. I'm saying that they're going to, and I've heard somebody else talk about it, that they're going to have to widen that road. To do that, they would have to take all the frontage property from all the houses on one side. Now, they can't do that by this amendment. They cannot do that without offering the owner of that property fair and just compensation for that amount of land that they're going to take. That's what that's about.
Yeah, I found this interesting. And when you read the due process of law, right, it says this clause ensures fair legal proceedings and protections against unjust government actions. That's very
Mm-hmm.
broad. And
Mm-hmm.
the reason I bring up about uh, protection against unjust government actions is that can be interpreted a lot of ways, Jim.
Yeah,
And
and
when you look at the fact that you get pulled over for the police and they're pulling you over because for something silly and it turns into this escalated traffic stop, right?
mm-hmm.
To me, that kind of falls into this right here because it
Yeah,
talks
that would
about
almost be
just
an entrapment
fair.
as well.
Yeah, it talks about fair legal proceedings, and we understand, right? You have a right to attorney. It should be, trial should be speedy. You should have to wait forever. But unjust government actions, and I'm
Yeah,
not saying that all police are bad, but there are
yeah,
police out there. There are law enforcement entities that are not operating on the up and up all the time.
yeah.
So I think that this really is part of the process, right?
Mhm.
And I, I was shocked when I read that and I thought about it. And a lot of people want to quote the Fourth Amendment for when they're dealing with the police, but I think this applies just as much.
Yeah, because I mean, how many times have you seen on a TV show where a cop pulls you over but doesn't have anything? As he walks up, he kicks out your tail light. He says, "Well, you got a broken tail light." Well, since you got a broken tail light, and I pulled you over, I smell something coming from your car. That gives me the right to search your car. I mean, they could just keep going and going and going. That can snowball all over the place. I mean, and that's the kind of thing this protects you from. But I mean, it also, like you said, it's open to interpretation. It depends on who you got interpreting it at the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Now, the eminent domain is also a big deal because just compensation is very loosely worded. Who determines
Yeah.
that just compensation, right? And
Yeah.
what the value of that property is.
Yeah. What you bought it for or what you could sell it for versus the tax assessment. Because as well as I do, and anybody that owns a home, you got what your house is worth, then you got what it's taxed for, and what they base your property taxes on. They're different figures. They could be vastly different. So what is
Yeah,
just compensation?
absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, I was shocked at the breadth and depth of the Fifth Amendment and everything it covers. It's interesting as we go through these, and we'll be injecting these amendments right through our podcast through the year, right? Sometimes to go through them because I'm learning a lot about our Constitution and these amendments and the value of
Mm-hmm.
thinking about how far back, right, 250 years ago, this country was founded and still running strong on these same principles.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it's got these. You think about it, the first 10 amendments are the Bill of Rights. Everyone we've read, everyone we've gone through is what your rights are and what the government's rights are not.
Yep, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jim,
Yeah.
I think we've covered them. I don't think there's anything going there, but there is a lot of topics we got to cover of stuff that's happened over the past 2 weeks, and I think that's going to take up quite a bit of time today. And if you're good with it, let's jump into them.
All right, let's do it.
First, the government shutdown. Now, I'm going to call this out for what it is.
Do it.
Right? This is the Democrats making themselves look silly. And the reason I say that, I understand the protections and they're concerned about health care and the back and forth and whether the health care covers illegal immigrants or not. Here's the deal. The CR should be clean. And the time they should have passed the CR, they should have agreed to pass the CR and then sat down to negotiate the extension of those health care rights that they're so concerned about because they don't expire until the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So you're falling on your sword and you've shut down the government because you're worried about these healthcare things. And I'm not saying it's not a valid point. What I'm saying is you have until November 24th first to negotiate that stuff out. I have no understanding on why they think, especially when the Democrats were in charge of Congress, we went along and we got CRs passed, right? The last CR was 2019. Or excuse me, shutdown was 2019 under Trump. And that was 35 days. I just fail to understand the logic behind this, especially when you have elections coming up here in a month. This doesn't look good. It doesn't look good for either party. Let's just be very clear. It doesn't look good for either party, more over the Democrats, from my perspective. They want to blame Trump. They want to go after Trump. I got it. This is not the game to play, because you're affecting benefits for the American people, and you should keep the government running, right? Because you're just wasting money. I do not understand the logic behind this, Jim.
No, I agree with you. I think it's a Democrat thing, but we're in a position over the last, in my opinion, since 2016, really, we have a more us against them mentality than I think we've ever had, and that's what we're playing. We're playing a lot of that. Both sides are playing it, and you can't work together if you're just, your entire existence is going to be animosity. I'm running on the platform, get Trump. That's it. Not what am I doing for my constituents? And when you're in that mentality, all bets are off. You don't care about the American people. I'm going to make Trump look bad. I'm going to make Schumer look bad. I'm going to make Pelosi look bad. I'm going to make Vance look bad. Whatever. You're not doing your job. You're there for one reason. That's to take care of us, to be honest. It just, yeah. And the whole thing about Congress getting paid during the shutdown, no.
That's got to change. I'm sorry. Congress should not get paid if they do not pass a budget, and they should not get reimbursed when they do pass the budget, right? They should stay unpaid for any amount of time that the government is not properly funded. That means including a CR. That includes continuing resolution. If you're on a continuing resolution just to keep the government operating, but you don't have a budget passed for the year, do not get paid. Now, there's a lot of people in Congress that are rich, but there's a lot of people that are not as well. And I tell you, I think if they weren't getting paid, they'd be more apt to negotiate.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, you make them suffer the same things. Suffer may be the wrong word. Experience the same things that you and I do. When we don't work, we don't get paid. It don't matter whose fault it is. If they got a little bit of dose of reality, you're right. Things may completely change in how they approach things.
This is the silliest shutdown I've seen. This is absolutely silly. Any shutdown of the government is stupid. This is by far the silliest one I've seen, because you're worried about something that's going to happen at the end of the year, and you could have extended and at least try to negotiate through the end of the year. And if by the end of the year you didn't negotiate, then you'd have I think maybe you'd have a valid right to not pass a budget or a continuing resolution. But to just flat out throw the hammer down from Jump Street is ridiculous. I cannot understand this.
Mm-hmm. But with that us versus them mentality, getting them to a table to even talk, let alone agree on anything, it's getting harder and harder to do.
And there's a lot of Democrats now that are that are in Congress that are now coming to the table and saying, yeah, this is pretty silly. We should work to negotiate something.
Yeah. And the problem with that is,
I hope they do this week. Yeah.
Yeah. And the problem with that is, not just in this, but in anything, if the Democrats come up and say, we do need to work with the president or the administration on this, well, then they're blacklisted by their own party. So then they can't get anywhere.
We got to keep the government funded. We got to keep the government operating. A lot of, and there's a lot of people complaining about contractors, right? Supporting the government. You know who's keeping the government running right now? We're not making decisions, but who's keeping the government operating? The contractors, because most of the contractors are funded, right? There are ones that need to be funded right on the fiscal year, and those contractors may not get paid, but because they're not guaranteed to get that funding. But a majority of the contracts run through the fiscal year, right, or funded over the fiscal year, and I'm going to work every day. So it is contractors in large that are keeping the government operating when Congress cannot agree.
Yep.
All right, on to the next subject.
The Kavanaugh would-be assassin. Yeah, he
got 8 years.
Yeah, they were pushing for 20.
Yeah.
And they got him for 8. I mean, an assassin. Attempted murder. I mean, that's like what we talked about before. Some of these sentences that are being handed down are just ridiculous. You know? Because I mean, he'd get out in 8 years. He's relatively, I wouldn't say young, but relatively still healthy enough to go out and do it again. But I don't think there's a justification for it.
I'm blown away. Is 8 years enough? I don't know. I think it's pretty serious. I think it should have been a much tougher sentence. I was reading, though, that when she arrived there, she did text her sister, explain what she was going to do, and her sister told her to call 911. And she said, "Hey, I'm here, but I'm having suicidal thoughts."
Mm-hmm.
And what bothers me about this, Jim, is, and this is this thing about being so drawn apart by political party, and I don't understand why we are so diametrically opposed on so many things when we're really Americans first. And I can't understand, because if it was the other way around and it was somebody trying to kill one of the Democratic Supreme Court justices, the Democrats would be having a meltdown.
Well, they'd be rioting in the street. People, just regular people, burning cities down and stuff. It just...
Absolutely. And so I'm concerned that we should be blind to politics when it comes to stuff like this.
Yeah.
Politics should not play in this. If a Supreme Court justice, regardless of their political affiliation or their perspectives on the law, we should treat anybody trying to kill somebody in the government the same.
Absolutely. It's just, I mean, we're placing the value of people's life just on what party they're affiliated with, or what belief they hold, or whether you like them or not. I got people in my life, that I don't like. I don't want them to be assassinated.
Yeah. I
mean, it just, it just doesn't make any sense. And I mean, we're talking, double standard all the time. This is another one. I don't feel bad in saying that, like you said, if this was a Democrat, I think there'd be a much heftier sentence.
Yes, sir. The next one probably is not known nationwide, but a big deal in Virginia. The J. Jones text messages. So in Virginia, J. Jones is running for Attorney General, and he's Democrat. And he said some crazy things in text messages 3 years ago. He says, "If those guys die before me, I will go to their funerals and piss on their graves, send them out awash in something." And then says, 3 people, 2 bullets, Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head. Gilbert being the head of the party, the Republican Party in Virginia. It says here, put Gilbert in the crew with the two worst people you know, and he receives both bullets all the time. He also went on to say crazy stuff about this guy's kids, right? And it is scary to me. So let's talk about the positive. He took ownership. He didn't shuck it. He didn't deny it. Good news is he said, yeah, I own it. I did it. It appalls me to see what I wrote in writing. Good for him for doing that and not making excuses.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a positive out of all this. But then all the Democrats in Virginia are rallying around this guy and say he should still run. And I think anybody who has that kind of violent rhetoric as a politician probably ought not be running for attorney general.
I agree, but he would probably still stand about the same chance of winning because they just view things different than we do. Sad to say, but yeah. And the thing is, there's a mindset that they don't seem to understand. And this is one, and to me it applies to a lot, is, say what you will, do what you want. Children are off limits. I don't care what you're discussing. You know what I mean? Kids are off limits. You don't know. I mean, you can cite several examples of this back to remember when during Trump's first term, when they were talking junk about his son, who was 10 years old at the time.
Yep.
And just other things. I mean, it just, kids are off limits, but like you said, he owned it. He admitted it, which in my mind, that's a character trait. In my mind, you're busted at something. Yeah, you got me. Okay. I admit it. I did wrong. That goes a lot further than like you said, just trying to make excuses, trying to cover it up. Somebody hacked my phone, that kind of thing. So that's a character trait, but I don't know that it offsets the character trait that made him say it in the first place. But you got to think also, how many times do you go back? It may not be this extreme, of course. Have you gone and thought, I shouldn't have done that 5, 7, 10 years ago? That's not how I think now. So maybe he's changed his mind. I don't know. But
no,
I don't think.
He initially denied it. I'm looking, he initially denied it, right? But now he's owned it. But he even said that Gilbert's wife's children should die, and said, yes, I've told you this before, only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy. I don't understand.
That's a perversion, I think, of something that I think about, is people don't normally do what needs to be done unless it's personal to them somehow. But that's a huge perversion on that idea.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, moving on. I'll let you cover this one.
Yeah. That poor girl.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, that she died on the subway. She was stabbed, and it was unprovoked. And so in North Carolina, they passed a new law which restricts pretrial release and speeds up death penalty appeals, makes domestic violence restraining order easier, and changes immigration laws. So in North Carolina, they're getting with the program that releasing people, right, is not working. They're getting it.
Yeah.
This cashless bail and releasing people, repeat offenders out on the street, probably not a good idea.
14 times, 14 arrests since 2007 for violent crimes. And he had a history of mental illness as well. And if you watch the video, there's no confrontation either. She's sitting here, he's sitting behind her, looking out the window. And next thing you know, he just stands up and starts stabbing her in the neck. And what's even worse, as if that's not bad enough, is all the people sitting around her, nobody reacts. Okay, you don't want to endanger your life to fight this guy. Okay, I get that. But after he's gone, you don't go over to help her. They just sat there all around her. Just immigrated to the country a year prior to get away from the war in Ukraine. I come to America. I got a good life. We're going to do something. We're away from the war, hot dog. We're going to have a decent life. Boom. And that's where you remember our podcast on immunity. You know, these judges and prosecutors and defense attorneys and all these people that get these guys off and get them bail and get them time reduced in their sentence and let them out early, you know, they have no incentive, you know, to do the right thing because they're never going to get punished for this kind of thing. And I think that they're actually as culpable, you know, in this as the people committing the crimes because they basically are the one that puts the gun in their hand, so to speak. You know, but they have that immunity, so they're never gonna have to face the consequences. And there's no incentive to do the right thing if you have no punishment for doing the wrong thing.
Well, they should be held accountable.
Absolutely.
How about North Carolina? I mean, North Carolina. Listen to me. California National Guard troops to Portland. Federal judge blocked this movement, and he's doing it anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
This is interesting. My opinion, number one, he's crossed the line. If a federal judge blocked it, and he's doing it anyhow, he's violating the rights of the what the judge said to do. I can't believe it. I shouldn't say I can't believe it. We're talking about Donald Trump. I believe that Donald Trump would do something like that. But, well, you know, we've talked about this in other podcasts, you know, on subjects, Jim. And, you know, this is a dog and pony show because I told you in D.C., they didn't take them to the areas where crime was bad. They put them in the public areas where the tourists were visiting. So if you want to help the cities by augmenting their forces and let them be in charge. Sit down and talk to them and ask them what they need. Don't do it on your own.
But that goes back to the fact that it's an us versus them mentality. Because it's Trump, they're just going to fight him just because. It's like, how many other presidents have you ever seen in your lifetime where everything he does is blocked by a federal judge? I'm like, what's the point of being in office? Not to mention, when we discussed this before too, the insurrection law of 1837 or whatever, where he has the right in extreme situations to deploy the troops. Not to mention, what was Stephen Miller? He said something on this. Quote, the president is the commander in chief of the armed forces, not an Oregon judge. Okay, that may go a little far, but I get the idea. But it goes back to what I've said before. You've got these administrations that won't work with them. You got these administrations that are either incompetent or they choose not to do anything. They're elected time after time, same party, same people, same ideals, 25, 50, sometimes even upwards of 100 years, the same party in the same city doing the same thing, and people continue to die. American citizens continue to die left and right. Nobody does anything. I get it, and I love your scalpel, you know, reference that you always make, but there's sometimes things like Americans dying in droves, to me, trumps, no pun intended, that kind of argument. You know what I mean? The people are dying and they're more worried about someone coming in and stopping the killing than the killing itself. And that to me, that's where I have a problem.
And that's fine. And he is the commander in chief, and he can mobilize them under Title 10, not under Title 32. And he can mobilize them, but he cannot mobilize them for the reasons he's using. If he wants to protect federal buildings and federal properties and ICE facilities and things of that nature, great. But he cannot use the National Guard troops to quell riots, to go after and arrest people. He can't do it. He doesn't have the authority.
According to the insurrection law, he does.
I disagree. I disagree that it's insurrection. There's violence. There's issues.
Insurrection. That's the law.
I understand.
Where is that? I had that up.
Because we talked about this in depth when he deployed the troops in California. We talked about this in depth, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
So he really, yeah, this is a slippery slope. All righty.
1807.
How about the Chicago ICE agents boxed in?
That's a mess. That is a mess. You know, it's like we've talked about many times before. You know, again, we don't want to see anybody hurt. I don't need to see anybody hurt. I don't want to see anybody hurt. But if you're going to launch an assault against armed federal agents, I mean, whether they're in the right or wrong, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, they got boxed in, they got rammed, and she come out of that vehicle with an assault rifle. I mean, yeah, that's just crazy.
Yeah, I'm good with the protests and boxing them in, ramming them, and displaying a semi-automatic rifle. Probably not too smart.
Mm-mm. Now, that goes back to the discussion of protesting versus rioting. If they wanted to march on the street with signs and yell, have at it, buddy. That's your constitutional right. But once you take violence, once you take a violent act, that's when that ends.
No, I agree. I think we're united on this one, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
This is a no-brainer. It seems like a no-brainer to me. And
did you read if the lady's okay?
Huh?
Did you read if the lady's okay? I read where she drove herself to
the
the
hospital. She got
hospital.
released from the hospital. She's okay.
Okay.
She's okay.
See, lesson learned without her dying. Okay. Yeah.
So Jim, go ahead. Go ahead, Jim.
I think, because remember several years ago when they were talking about tasers were evil, and tasing people are going to kill them. It's evil. It's evil. It's like, well, you got tasers and you got rifles and handguns. I mean, what would you rather get hit with? I'm thinking you give them like quarter or half load bullets, rubber bullets. You know what I mean? You get a nice welt. You're not tased. You're not going to set off a heart attack or anything like that. You know what I mean? Some rubber bullets on a half load. You get hit with a few of those, you're going to leave. I don't understand why they don't just do that. I mean, there's got to be a reason. But to me, it's a decent medium. You're not killing anybody. You're not permanently wounding anybody. A welt will go away in a couple of weeks. You're not even using a full load on them. But you hit people with a few rubber bullets, they're going to back off, and nobody dies.
Well, Jim, I threw one more subject on there that we completely overlooked that I'm sure you want to discuss.
Oh, yeah.
This is interesting.
Yeah, Comey. That's a big boy too. He's what, 6'8"? That's a big boy.
So I find this interesting for several reasons. And they're saying that they're going after him because Democrats went after Trump and Trump's returning the favor. I say let it run its course. Grand jury indicted him.
Mm-hmm.
Let it run its course.
If there's something there, great. If there's not, okay.
And I think there's others that are going to be eventually indicted. I don't think he's going to be the only one. I know they're looking at Chris Wray.
I read they're looking at Hillary Clinton.
Absolutely. And I know they're looking at Hillary. And I definitely think from the reading I've done that there definitely was enough evidence to indict.
Mm-hmm.
Now, will that turn into a conviction? That's not up to me. I'm not a lawyer, Jim. I don't know.
I just read a little bit ago where one of the FBI agents was relieved of duty because he refused to perp walk Comey. Did you read that? I didn't read the whole story, but I just saw that a few minutes ago, but before we started here. It's like, okay, hey, dude, do your job. You may not like it. You're not the one that indicted him. I mean, just walk him. I wouldn't lose my job over that. But I was really surprised when I saw that. I did not think that was going to happen. As far as the whole, he's just doing this for retaliation. Well, I mean, maybe he is, but when you think about it, they didn't just go after Trump, the man. They went after a president of the United States, a sitting president, with whatever they could muster up, whether it was true or not. And that right there is something, again, party be damned. We don't care about the party in this case. That is something we don't need to be doing to our elected officials, especially the president, no matter which party. What? Did you see that message?
Yeah. I'm looking now. Did we get a message in Facebook? Oh, yeah, we did a comment.
A comment. I don't quite.
Yeah, I don't think we want to respond to that.
I don't understand what that's even about.
I think I understand what Milky's saying, but I don't think I'm going to respond to that.
Yeah. Milky, if you could clarify or say it in another way.
And then this was a pretty monumental thing too, calling all the generals back to Quantico, Virginia.
Yeah, is that where he laid out the new way that they're going to handle troops and training and overweight and
absolutely. Yeah. He said no fat generals, and I'm sure 95% of the generals there, that wasn't an issue, but I'm sure there's a small percentage that were like, I need to get with the program.
I'm sorry.
And the fact that he said, hey, if you're not in line with Trump's agenda, get out.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't a country club. This is the United States military. Do you think when we walk on the field of battle against another military that they're going to have overweight people and they're going to no? If you can't meet the standards, and that's one thing I've talked about before, is you got your male standard and your female standards. And I've always complained about that because, the female doesn't have to run as fast as the man to qualify. An AR-47 bullet, I can't remember what the calculations, travels at the same speed when you shoot it at a woman as it does when you shoot it at a man. So why the difference? Now, if she can, if the woman can meet the same qualification without you having to lower it, have at it. She can do it all day long. I don't care. But you're lowering the standards, and especially when you also take that to, we've talked about this before as well, to the first responders, police, fire. If you have to lower the standards, that's putting people's lives in danger. And I don't have a problem at all with you having specific qualifications to meet to be in the military. I mean, your whole job is to move and fight and duck and cover and 3 to 5 second rush from concealment to cover. I mean, you can't do that when you're obese. You can't.
Hey, Colin.
I can't do it now.
Yeah. And Colin, I saw your comment. Yeah, it could have been an email. I disagree with an email. That should have been probably a Teams meeting or something of that nature to fly them all in and waste all that money to fly them in to have that conversation. However, I will say that sometimes when you have those meetings face to face, it has a bigger impact than when you do it through a remote method. But it's a good point, Colin. Thanks for the feedback.
Colin, I think that's what Kevin referred to a little bit ago also is that dog and pony show. They wanted it to be seen. They wanted it to be seen. They wanted it to be covered. They wanted it to be news. I think that was intentional.
Well, Jim, we've run the gamut, I think, for this podcast.
Indeed.
And so you want to announce our topic for the 19th?
The next topic we're going to be discussing is voter integrity, voting integrity. IDs, everything they're talking about, voter ID, mail-in ballots, early voting, all the stuff they're talking about doing or not doing, and to make our elections secure and safe and fair.
Well, great. I think we ran the gamut. I'm looking forward to our podcast in 2 weeks, Jim. Should be interesting. I think there's a lot to cover there, a lot to unpack. I think we'll probably spend quite a bit of time going through that. But we'll still cover current subjects that happened in the past 2 weeks. Well, I'm Kevin.
I'm Jim.
And we are
the Signal Brothers.
Thanks for joining, folks. Have a great one.
Thank you, folks.